The agriculture and its practices we are used to seeing today were not always like this. The Neolithic Revolution, which is also known as the Agricultural Revolution, is the event in human history that signaled a transition from small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers to larger agricultural settlements and the beginning of civilization. And the Fertile Crescent, which is shaped like a boomerang and is located in the Middle East, is considered to be the birthplace of this revolution, which began approximately in 10,000 BC. Agriculture was quickly adopted by Stone Age humans in other regions of the world not long after this, and the improvements brought about led to the development of civilizations and cities. But how did this massive transition take place, and more importantly, why? The term New Stone Age can also be used to refer to the Neolithic Age. Stone tools were employed by Neolithic humans, much as they had been used by their Stone Age ancestors, who survived the most recent Ice Age as small bands of hunter-gatherers. In 1935, an Australian archaeologist by the name of V. Gordon Childe came up with the term Neolithic Revolution to describe the radical and significant period of change that occurred when humans began cultivating plants, breeding animals for food, and forming permanent settlements. The Neolithic people are distinct from their Paleolithic forebears because agriculture became widespread around their time. When people first started living together in communities, many aspects of modern civilization began to emerge and can be traced back to this point in history. Now, let's see the factors that led up to the Neolithic Revolution. When people first started farming 12,000 years ago, this decision was not made for any one specific reason. It's possible that different parts of the world experienced the Neolithic Revolution due to different reasons. Several explanations have been proposed as to why humans transitioned from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to one based on farming. Humans may have been dependent on the plants they modified in early attempts at domestication, and the plants may have become dependent on humans as a result of greater competition for food and the need to cultivate new crops brought on by population pressures. With the advancement of science and technology, numerous competing hypotheses have been proposed to explain the genesis of the agricultural revolution. Whatever the reason may be, humans became more stable once they stopped hunting and foraging. After the end of the most recent Ice Age, approximately 14,000 years ago, the temperature of the Earth began to gradually rise. As the climate became warmer, wild varieties of wheat and barley began to germinate and grow in the Fertile Crescent, which is bounded on the west by the Mediterranean Sea and the east by the Persian Gulf. People who lived in the area before the Neolithic period and were termed Natufians began constructing permanent housing. Other researchers in the scientific community think that individuals may have become more settled as a result of intellectual advancements in the human brain. The oldest Neolithic villages have been found to include religious objects and artistic iconography, both of which are considered to be the progenitors of human civilization. The transition from a nomadic, hunter-gatherer way of life to farming by some human communities marked the beginning of the Neolithic era. It is possible that it took humans hundreds or even thousands of years to completely shift from a lifestyle in which they subsisted on wild plants to a lifestyle in which they kept tiny gardens and later on tended to enormous crop fields. One of the most well-preserved Neolithic towns can be seen at the archaeological site of Çatalhöyük in southern Turkey. Researchers have gained a better grasp of how people transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle of hunting and gathering to a lifestyle based on agriculture as a result of their investigation of Çatalhöyük. At the 9,500-year-old site, archaeologists have discovered the remains of more than a dozen homes constructed of mud bricks. They speculate that there may have been as many as 8,000 individuals living in this area at one time. And because the houses were packed in so tightly against one another, the only way for the residents to access their dwellings was through a hole in the roof. It would imply that the people who lived in Çatalhöyük placed a high priority on artistic expression and spirituality. They placed their deceased family members and friends beneath the flooring of their homes. The walls of the homes here are adorned with murals depicting masculine hunters, herds of livestock, and various female deities. The archaeological site of Tel Abu Hureyra, which is a small settlement in modern-day Syria and is located along the Euphrates River, is credited with providing some of the earliest evidence of agricultural practices. Approximately around 11,500 to 7,000 BC, people lived in this town. In the beginning, the people who lived here would go hunting for gazelle and other types of animals. Around the year 9700 BC, however, they first started gathering wild cereals. At the site, archaeologists have discovered several big stone tools that were likely used for grinding grain. Neolithic farming cultures in the Fertile Crescent were responsible for the first successful cultivation of a wide variety of plants, including cereal grains such as emmer wheat, einkorn wheat, and barley. These early farmers were also responsible for the domestication of flax, lentils, chickpeas, and peas. The term domestication refers to the process by which farmers breed consecutive generations of a plant or animal to select for desired characteristics. The domesticated form of a species eventually diverges from its ancestral form in the wild. The Neolithic farmers chose to cultivate crops that were simple to harvest. When it's ready, wild wheat, for instance, will shrivel up and fall to the ground, where it will shatter. Wheat that remained attached to the stem throughout growth was favored by early humans because it was simpler to harvest. Inhabitants in Asia began cultivating rice and millet at the same time as people in the Fertile Crescent began planting wheat seeds in their fields. In Chinese marshes, archaeologists have uncovered the relics of ancient rice paddies that date back at least 7,700 years. Squash was one of the first crops to be cultivated in Mexico around 10,000 years ago, whereas maize and crops similar to it appeared around 9,000 years ago. The earliest domesticated animals developed from wild animals that Neolithic humans hunted for their meat. For example, domestic pigs were developed from wild boars, and goats originated from the Persian ibex. Domesticated animals made the strenuous and physically demanding work of farming feasible, while also adding diversity to the human diet through their milk and meat products. Nonetheless, they also carried contagious diseases such as measles, mumps, and smallpox, which were all transmitted from domesticated animals to humans. Sheep and cattle were among the first domesticated species in the world. Both these species date back between 10,000 and 13,000 years and were first discovered in Mesopotamia. In a brief amount of time, water buffalo and yak were brought into domestication in China, India, and Tibet. Much later, in approximately 4000 BC, humans constructed trade routes to move commodities. At this time, people also domesticated draft animals, such as oxen, donkeys, and camels. Domesticated animals, when used as labor, helped make more intensive farming possible and also provided additional nutrition via milk and meat for increasingly stable populations. Many different repercussions awaited humankind as a result of the agricultural revolution. It has been linked to everything from societal inequality, which is a result of humans' increased dependence on the land and fears of scarcity, to a decline in nutrition and an increase in infectious diseases contracted from domesticated animals. Moreover, it has been linked to a rise in the number of infectious diseases contracted from wild animals. However, the beginning of this new era also marked the beginning of the possibility of modern societies. Modern societies are civilizations that are distinguished by major population centers, increased technology, and improvements in science, arts, and trade. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.